One of the questions I've actually been asked before is, what were the things that got me into Looney Tunes in the first place? Because I never saw too many of the shorts unless they were on a VHS tape that might be lying around, maybe in the public domain tape, and I had a few officially released ones. But generally speaking, I did not actually watch too many shorts because we didn't really have cable TV here until about the mid-90s. But one thing I did watch quite a bit, and I recorded off the TV, are those compilation movies that were released from the late 70s to the late 80s. So this was during the period of time when Looney Tunes and cartoons in general weren't really thought of as high art or anything along those lines. In fact, a lot of the time they were seen as toy commercials, essentially. So, it is what it is. That's part of the history. In the 1970s, there was a little movie called Bugs Bunny Superstar, and that was not distributed by Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers didn't really want much to do with Looney Tunes. They just saw it as kiddie fodder, and that was it. In fact, they even outsourced it to make that wonderful Daffy Duck and the Groovy Ghoulies over to Filmation. So that's how much of a low point things were. But Bugs Bunny Superstar was a big success. They then tapped Chuck Jones to do some new stuff at the studio, including the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. And that proved to be a great success as well. And that created this nice little formula where they would actually have a lot of the old shorts, so all the great shorts, and they would create some bridging material between shorts to essentially tell a story, however loose it might be. That proved to be a success as well. And they even got Freeze Freeling back to do 3 more. So Looney Bugs Bunny Movie, 1001 Rabbit Tales, and Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island. And those have done pretty well, not only in the cinema, but also even on cable TV and other avenues, VHS, of course. But there's one more, the 5th one, and this was not done by Chuck Jones, Freeze Freeling. This was done by someone fairly new, and that is Greg Ford on Quackbusters. And it was also co-directed by Terry Lennon as well. I don't want to leave his name out either, because they co-directed it. But I'm not going to go into deep into the history of Quackbusters, but this was at a period of time where we were sort of getting the passing on to the new guard. You had Greg Ford. He created 2 shorts that were quite horror themed, and they're actually quite good. They're actually included on this set, by the way, and I'll go through that in a sec. But he was also tasked with making a new compilation movie, and that's what he did. This also features the last major performance of the Looney Tunes characters by Mel Blanc, and I'll mention something perhaps in just a moment as well. Now, during this time, they also did a lot of television compilation movies and just low-budget affairs. But around this time, especially when this was released, we had Roger Rabbit, and that helped spark a new creative revival of things, and that led to Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, and so on, and other studios, Simpsons, Ren and Stimpy, Nickelodeon rising, all that stuff. So that's what we mean by an animation revival. But this was done at the tail end of the so-called Dark Ages when it came to animation. And studios were starting to now see the value of their animated characters. And it'd be nice if they did that again these days, recording this in 2025. So what is Quackbusters about is actually a very simple idea. It's a great idea, in fact. So you have Daffy Duck after we see Daffy Dilly, one of the 1940s Chuck Jones shorts. We have an extended ending where Daffy Duck ends up inheriting money from J.B. Cubish. And he decides to use the money to run a paranormal extermination service. So maybe Greg Ford was influenced a bit by Ghostbusters, I don't know. But if Daffy doesn't use the money for good, hence why he opened up that ghostbusting service in the first place, the money ends up being disappeared by J.B. Cubish, who is a ghost, and leads to many wonderful jokes. And we get some wonderful animated shorts in between, and not only that, even in the bridging sequences, which was done in-house at Warner Brothers at the time, they actually included a lot of Easter eggs, some obvious, like using Egghead towards the end, and some not so obvious, which is some of the musical cues that Carl Starling and Will Franklin enjoyed using in the original shorts. So you get a nice little mixture when it comes to all of that. But most importantly, this is actually funny. And while the other 4 compilation movies are great, I quite enjoy those, this felt a little bit more of a breath of fresh air because it's somebody new, someone who had great reverence of the original material. I mean, he's also a historian as well. So Greg Ford not only is an animator and a director, but he's also a historian. So he knows what he's talking about. Hence why he's on a lot of the audio commentaries in those Looney Tunes Golden collections. But seeing this movie again after a while, it's great to see just how refreshing it actually is. Is the animation in the bridging sequences as good as the animation in the original shorts? No, but damn it, they certainly give it their all, and it actually looks pretty decent. And we got this brand new restoration that was done in 4K, and it's being downsampled to a regular Blu-ray. So what do you get on this set? Now, this is interesting because you got two versions of the movie. You've got the so-called matinee version, which plays one of Greg Ford's short in the beginning, and that's how I actually originally discovered this movie. They played the short in the beginning and then the movie proper, and it makes it a more respectable 80 minutes versus like 70 minutes or whatever it is. But you can also play that short separately. In fact, you can play the two Greg Ford shorts that are featured in this movie separately, which is great. So if you just want to check those out, they're right there as well. But you also get some other bonus features. So you get the other two Greg Ford shorts. So you get the Invasion of the Bunny Snatchers. You get the wonderful Blooper Bunny as well. That short alone has an interesting history of it being buried and all that, but it's a great short to watch. And just to sweeten the deal, we even get a few extra shorts that came around at that time. So you get Little Go Beep and the Duck Dodgers and then the Return of the 24th and a half Century. And that's interesting to have on this set. If you watch that, you can tell that Jones wasn't quite in his prime when he made that short. There's definitely some issues with that one. And Little Go Beep, well, it's there, okay? It's there in high definition too. It would have been nice if there was a special feature, just a brief one to discuss the history. If you listen to the Extras podcast, they do a discussion in regards to the history of this movie. They go through it briefly, and there's even a Cartoon Research article which has an interview with Greg Ford, and that's a really great one to read as well. So a few things I wanted to mention about this movie. Mel Blanc's voice, yes, you can tell the difference between his older voice and his newer voice. For whatever reason, they didn't pitch up his voice very well in this one. I've always wondered why. I thought it would have been a quick thing. I guess maybe that's how low budgeted all this was, that they just didn't have the budget to do it. I don't know, but he sounds more like Mel Blanc than Daffy Duck when he speaks as Daffy Duck. And of course, all the years of smoking and whatnot would have had an effect on his vocal cords at the time. But he could still deliver the goods as far as I'm concerned. It just happens to stand out more. And I already mentioned the animation. All things considered, I think it's pretty decent. You've got wonderful Easter eggs in here. And again, it's funny. And the good thing is, it's not just funny in relation to the original shorts that you see, but it's also funny because of the bridging sequences being funny as well. You get some great stuff in here, and it tells a nice, complete story. And it was later on I would discover most of these shorts in full, but they definitely had their origins with me from Quackbusters. So, should you get Quackbusters? I say yes. It's actually an interesting bit of history, because A, it came out at the tail end of the Dark Ages, so you can see how things really were at the time. And B, it also shows the passing of the guard. So you have the old guard, aka the old shorts, and the new guard that will take over and do what they do in relation to the Looney Tunes and other animated projects over at Warner Brothers. So I'll have a link below to that Blu-ray. If you haven't got it, definitely pick it up. I highly recommend it. And hopefully one day we'll see the other 4 compilation movies, because I think they all deserve to be released in high definition on Blu-ray. But that will do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.